We have a gentle practice planned for today focused around the hips and the sacrum, also part of the energy center that in yoga we refer to as the sacral chakra. So for props, I'm going to recommend getting a block. If you don't have a yoga block, maybe a couple extra blankets or towels so you can fold and stack. We'll use this to support our hips and low back. And then another yoga blanket. So if you don't have a yoga blanket, it could be a beach towel or a throw blanket or something like that. All right. And we'll get started on our backs. We'll set our props aside. It might be nice today to use your blanket to provide some support underneath the head. And coming down, and then anything comfortable for the legs. So knees can be bent. You can have the feet planted and rested on the earth. You can even walk the feet out to the edges of the mat and let the knees fall in. Or even the legs come down, whatever feels good for you in your body. And then the same thing for the hands. They can come down by the side, maybe connecting one hand to the heart, one hand to the belly. If you have a pug sitting on top of you, maybe the hands resting on your pug. All right. Once you get settled, let's take a few cleansing breaths together. Big, deep inhale, fill up the lungs. Part the lips, heavy sigh out. We'll do that 2 more times. Big, deep breath in. Let it go. Audible sigh out. All right. Let's hold this last one at the top. Big, deep breath in. Hold it. Taking one more little sip. Part the lips. Heavy sigh out. Let it go. And just starting to take our focus inward, preparing the mind and the body for this sacred time that we've set aside for our practice. And if it feels okay, start to close the eyes. This just helps us take that focus inward. Noticing here what it's like to be you today. What kind of emotions, feelings you've brought with you here onto your mat. Even noticing your energy. What energy have you cultivated so far in your day that's followed you here? And we make this observation without judgment. We allow ourselves to show up and be exactly as we are here in this moment. And now let's bring the attention to the body, to the physical sensations of the body. And I always like to do this scan, starting from the soles of the feet, coming and traveling up the length of the body, looking for feedback from each individual body part. Noticing any tension, tightness, the parts of the body that feel soft or open. And we'll finish this scan traveling all the way up to the crown of the head. And I'll give you a few moments here to do your scan. And once you've finished your scan of the body, we'll bring our awareness to the breath. Without changing anything here, we're just observing our natural pattern of breathing. Noticing where in the body the breath lands. Noticing where in the body the breath creates space as it travels back out through the nose or the mouth. And on your next inhale breath, see if you can soften and relax the muscles in the belly. Almost like letting the belly melt. Breathing in through the nose, sending the breath into the bottom of the belly. And then letting the breath travel back out through the nose. We'll keep this going for a few rounds of breath, just deepening that mind-body connection here. A few more cycles of breath. And I'm not going to cue any specific breath practice for today, but if you have a specific pranayama that you want to use, like the Ujjayi pranayama, you can set that up. This is a gentle practice, so I think just staying in rhythm and focus with your natural breath will be perfect for our practice today. All right, let's start to invite in some movement here. And if the knees aren't already bent, maybe start to bend into the knees, planting the feet in front of the hips. Let's bring the arms out to the side. We'll find a little tick-tock of the knees from side to side. And then bringing your awareness to the part of the body here that's in contact with the earth. So for me, that's my sacrum, the little bony part of the very low part of the back, right above and around my hips. And the flesh around the sacrum, the top of my butt, and even allowing the sides of the hips as I move from one side to the other. So just noticing where in the body you feel the contact with the earth here in this movement. And a few more tick-tocks from side to side. And the next time the knees fall over to the left, we'll let the legs be heavy and surrender the weight of the legs to the earth. And the gaze can be up at the ceiling or at the sky, or if it feels okay on the neck, maybe take the gaze out over the right fingertips. And just noticing here as we've landed in this shape, in this pose, where in the body you're experiencing and feeling sensation. And like I had mentioned earlier, the hips are the energy center of the sacral chakra. And the sacral chakra is where we store and source our creativity, feelings and emotion and our feminine energy. On the next inhale, let's bring the knees back up through center. We'll find that little tick-tock from side to side again. And then the next time the knees fall over to the right, let the legs be heavy here, surrendering the weight of the legs to the earth. And then the gaze can stay up at the ceiling, or again, if it feels okay on the neck, maybe taking the gaze out over the left fingertips. And so in the spirit of working through this sacral chakra, I'd like to invite a little challenge for you today. I want you to consider, as you move through the different poses, postures, and our flow today, what would it look like to move with unconditional love for your body? What would it look like to move with the greatest intention, to allow yourself to feel and move with the divine feminine energy? What would that look for you today? On the next inhale, let's bring everything back to center. And then option to find those little tick-tocks of the knees from side to side again, or maybe let the knees fall in toward each other and rest here in a broken bridge. And just notice any shifts or changes in the back of the hips. And then we're going to draw the knees in toward the chest, Apanasana here. And then the hands can rest either on top of the shins, they can even rest behind the thighs or on top of the knees. And you can take this Apanasana with the knees together, or you can even take them out a little wider, creating space for the belly here. And then another option to hold in stillness, or maybe find a gentle rock from side to side. And whichever option you're taking, bringing that awareness, that attention to the space that's contacting the earth, the hips, the sacrum, the back of the pelvis. And then we'll find some stillness. And we'll roll over onto the right hand side. So keeping the knees stacked and together and allowing the head to rest on the inside of the bicep. And we've spent some time on the back, so just noticing how the back space of the body feels here. Maybe enjoying this nice breath of air. Maybe even noticing the parts of the back that might feel warm. And if there's a different temperature or a cooler temperature in another space of the back. And then when you're ready, in your time, we're going to meet in a C. So you can plant the hand on the inside of the chest on the floor and press yourself up to a C. And then let's grab our blanket or towel. And then let's fold the blanket so you've got a couple inches of space. And we're going to sit on the edge of this blanket. And I'm just going to show you from the side, and then I'll turn around and face you. But we want these bony little parts of We refer to them as our sit bones, but the bony little part of the butt on the edge of the blanket. So we don't want the full surface of the butt to be resting on the blanket. We just want to be kind of on the edge of our seat, like we're eagerly anticipating Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. All right. And then we're going to take soles of the feet together and let the knees come out to the outside edges of the mat. And let's create great distance and space between the heels and the groin. And you can walk the feet out a little bit. So we have this diamond shape made with the legs. All right. And then from here, we're going to create a little butterflying with the knees. So keeping the soles of the feet together and then gently bringing the knees together and allowing them to fall back out. Maybe syncing this up with the breath, allowing the inhales to bring the knees together and the exhales, the knees fall out. And then just notice where you feel the effort of this movement. So maybe you feel the insides of the legs working as you bring the knees together. Maybe you feel the outside of the hips and the thighs working as you bring the knees together. And again, coming back to my invitation, my challenge, moving in a way with great intention that would honor and show the deepest unconditional love to the body. So what would that look like for you? All right, we'll do a couple more of these. And then the next time the knees fall out to the side, we'll pause. Now, if you liked this, if this feels good with the heels coming further out from the groin, you can stay here, or maybe bring the feet in a little bit closer. And this may increase sensation in the body. So if you've gone too far, you can always walk the feet back out. And I just like to remind you that more isn't better, it's just more. So take what you need, again, honoring what it is that your body needs in this moment, on your mat, in your practice today. All right, so once you get here, deciding where you want to hold this pose, hands can rest anywhere that's comfortable on the ankles, on the shins, maybe even holding the feet together. And then let's sit up a little bit taller. So imagine finding full length in the spine, maybe even closing the eyes here. And then imagine on your inhale breath, you're drawing energy up from your seat, the points of contact that the seat is making with the earth. And that energy is flowing and traveling up these beautiful natural curves of the spine. So we have the energy coming around the sacrum, the low back, the lumbar spine, up the thoracic spine, the upper part of the back, the cervical spine, the neck, and then coming back and around, out through the crown of the head. And so continue this visualization here for just a few moments. And then observe the sensations that are happening in the body. So where is there greatest effort in this pose? Where are you feeling the most sensation of this pose? And then can you use that visualization of drawing energy up the spine, maybe collecting that effort, that tension, that sensation, gathering it up with that energy, and allowing it to travel up through the spine and out the crown of the head. If you have the eyes closed, you can keep them closed, or you can open them for this next part. We're going to take a forward fold. So let's keep that length that we have in the spine. We're going to keep this fold active, and then I'll give you an option to round the spine in a moment. All right, so keep the length in that spine, and then hinging forward at the hips. You can use the hands to support you here, and pausing at your first line of resistance. So for me, that's not very deep. And then just notice where you feel this in the body. Where did you feel more of that tugging, the pulling, the stretching? Is it the inner part of the thighs? Is it the outer part of the hips and the low back? Just noticing where you feel this. A couple cycles of breath here. Maybe pulling the heart a little bit further forward, coming through the shoulders. Letting your heart guide your practice. And then on the next exhale, we'll round the spine. Let this be passive. And let the forehead fold in. Maybe even letting the chin rest onto the chest. Taking the gaze in toward the belly button. And then just noticing how this changed. The sensations that are happening in the body. Where do you feel this shape with a passive spine here? Can you let the head be just a little bit heavier? And again, remember, more isn't better. So you don't have to touch the forehead to the feet. This doesn't have to look like anything except that unconditional love for your body. Like the unconditional love of your sweet pet. Couple more cycles of breath here. On the inhale, we'll start to press ourselves up, coming up very slowly. And then we'll take the hands on the outside of the knees and then just gently draw the knees back in toward one another. And then option here, taking what you need. So it might feel nice to fold back forward with the knees together like this, drawing the forehead in toward the knees. You can even make this a little bit wider, again, letting the belly come in through the thighs. That might feel nice. Or come back to some movement because we held in some stillness. So letting the hands come back behind the hips, resting back on the hands, and then just find a tick-tock of the knees. Reset the hips, reset the low back. Recirculate some synovial fluids in the joints and recirculate blood to our tissues. And maybe you take both, which is perfectly fine. And again, what does loving your body look like today? How would you move to express the love you have for your body? Okay, so we're going to come back to a seated pose. I like to stay on the blanket for this. It's up to you. If you would like to sit down on the floor for this next part, you can. So I'm going to show two variations of this pose, and sometimes based on our anatomy, one version of this pose may or may not be accessible for you. So you're going to choose the option that feels right for you. All right. So the first option is keeping that, I'm going to mirror you, keeping the right knee bent, and you're going to draw the left foot back and hook by the heel. And then that right foot is going to cross over the left leg, and you're going to draw that right heel toward the left hip. Now, if you come into this shape and you're coming up onto your side and you're not able to evenly sit down on the sit bones, then you're going to try this other variation. So if this feels good, you'll stay here. If this does not, you're just going to extend this left foot out in front of you and then let the right foot and knee rest over that left leg. Okay. All right, so taking the option that feels good for you, and we'll hold here for a couple cycles of breath. Just find some length. Hands can rest anywhere that's comfortable, maybe on the thighs, maybe on the earth. This can be a pretty intense pose. If you have that left foot extended, try and keep the toes coming in toward the body so that left foot is flexed. Maybe even closing the eyes, bringing the awareness to the sensations that are happening in the body. Where do you feel the most intensity in this shape? Okay, so I'm going to give you another option. This can feel very intense. So if you're feeling a lot just as you are holding and sitting here, you can stay here. If unconditional for your body today looks like folding forward, then you can take that option. So we're going to take a rounded spine, so passive fold forward, and then coming in to a depth, to a degree that feels safe and comfortable for you today. And then again, hands can rest anywhere that's comfortable. Maybe they rest on the earth to provide some support. I feel like sometimes this helps me release in the hips with the support of the hands on the ground, on the earth. Helps my upper part of the body relax and helps me get a little bit deeper into this pose. And that might not be the same for everyone, so experiment with what feels good for you. Try and allow the head to be heavy, chin coming into the chest. Say about 5 more cycles of breath here. So if you have space to go a little bit deeper, maybe folding a little bit further forward. And if you've gone too far, you can always lift and come up a little bit to a place that feels better. Honoring what your body needs today as you've shown up on your mat. And then let's walk the hands back in. This is the torso back upright. And then very gently, we're gonna unwind. So if that left foot is still up by that right hip, you're gonna re-extend that leg, and then you're gonna uncross that right foot to meet the left. And then same kind of options as last time. Maybe find that little tick-tock of the knees, maybe folding forward again, or any other counter movement that sounds good to you. You could even come back down onto the back. Might feel really nice, releasing the tops of the hips and the hip flexors and the top of the thighs, maybe even reaching the arms up and overhead. And then we'll meet back in a seat and switch to the other side. Good. All right. So we're going to take the right foot this time, thread it underneath the left. We're going to hook that right heel up toward the left hip. And then our sides are different. So what you need on one side might look and feel a little bit different than the other side. So the left foot will hook around toward that right hip. And again, finding that evenness in the sit bones. If you're unable to sit evenly and that left hip hikes up, then you're going to re-extend the right foot, keeping that left heel pulled into the right hip, and then you can allow that left knee to relax. And then just notice how you feel in this shape. And letting the hands rest somewhere comfortable in the lap. Maybe they rest on the earth. Find a little bit of length in the spine to sit up tall. And maybe close the eyes, observing the sensations in the body, how this shape feels on this side. We'll have a couple cycles of breath here. Now, if you feel like there's a lot of sensation in the body already happening, you can stay here. But if unconditional love for the movement of the body today looks like a forward fold, then you're going to take that option here. So starting to very slowly walk the hands out, allow the spine to round, and the chin comes in toward the chest. Let the head be heavy. And then again, just finding an option for the hands as you settle into this pose. Maybe the hands rest on the earth. So when the hands rest on the body, it can create a grounding effect, making you feel a little bit safer, more supported, and in touch with the sensations of what's happening right now. And a couple more cycles of breath. If you have space to go a little bit deeper, maybe folding a little further forward. And then on the next inhale, starting to walk the hands back in and slowly bringing the torso back up. And then we'll unhook. If that right foot is coming into the left hip, you'll re-extend that leg, and then unwinding that left foot to meet the right. And then taking whatever option again here feels good for you. Maybe the TikToks, maybe folding over the knees, maybe even coming down onto the back and stretching out the tops of the hips, maybe reaching up and overhead. All right. So we're going to meet on hands and knees here, all fours. We'll set our props aside for a moment. And in our tabletop pose, we've got hands planted about shoulder distance apart, fingertips spread wide, index fingers pointing to the top of the mat. And we're pressing into all 10 fingers here, knees below hips, about hip distance apart. And the toes can be tucked or untucked, so whatever your preference. I love tucked. I just feel more stable and supported this way, but untucked also creates a different sensation in the body. So maybe experimenting with that. And then we're going to take a few rounds of cat and cow. So we'll start with our cow pose. On the inhale, we'll hammock the belly, tilt the sit bones behind us, and then pull the heart forward. So we've changed that natural curvature in the spine, tilting the sit bones up. And it may feel like you're deepening that curve in the low back and the lumbar spine. And then we're flexing the upper part of the back, that thoracic spine. And so see here, if you can create more flexion in the upper part of the back instead of deepening the curve in the lumbar spine. It's almost like trying to even out the curves in the spine. So creating like one little scoop through the spine and maybe that little curve around the tailbone. And then once you get that, bring your attention to the low back, to this space on the hips, this sacrum area. And noticing how that feels in that area, in this shape, in this pose. And then we'll take our cat pose. So rounding the spine, push the earth away, tilt the sit bones down, and then draw the chin in toward the chest. And so here, see if you can round the lumbar spine, this low part of the back, creating that opposite effect. So now we're curving and rounding the spine. Maybe less curve in the upper part of the back and more curve in the lower part of the back. And then bringing your attention, your awareness to that same area, that little band around the hip and the sacrum. And we're going to do breath by breath movement between these two poses. Inhales will take us to cow, and then exhales to cat. Now see if you can initiate this movement from the sacrum. So starting the movement from that lowest part of the back, and then the rest of the back follows. It's like a wave. Imagine like a wave. And any other movement here that's calling to you, maybe shifting the hips from side to side, maybe even taking these little half circles. And again, this is your invitation, the freedom to find movement that would express unconditional love for the body today. Moving with great intention and love to care for your body. We'll take a couple more cycles of breath. On your next exhale, let's take child's pose. Allow the belly to come and rest on top of the thighs. And the forehead comes down and reaches toward the earth. And if the forehead doesn't rest, that's okay. We can stack palms, fists, forearms. This is also a really nice variation of this pose, allowing the chin to rest into the heel of the hands, supporting yourself on your elbows. This is another really nice option. And then another option for this pose is you can keep the knees really close together and then tuck the toes and experience this pose. You can also take the knees out wide to the outside edges of the mat, letting the belly come down and rest between the legs. And then surrendering into this shape. So we're going to take a few more cycles of breath here. I want to give you a chance to settle into the variation of this pose that feels good for you. And then bringing your attention again to that space in the low back and that sacrum. Noticing any tension, any stretching. Maybe you feel soft and open here. And then allow that attention to trace around. So almost like if it was a belt line, you're going to trace all the way around to the front. So probably around where your hip crease is, folding into the belly and the tops of the thighs. And notice what that feels like here. Maybe it feels very short, compact, restricted. Maybe it feels active. And then we're going to give that part of the body a little bit of love. So on your next inhale, we're going to rise back up, and then we're going to shift all the way down onto the belly. And we'll stack palms in front of the face, elbows come to the outside edges of the mat, and then let the forehead rest on the palms. And we'll take the feet out wide to the outside edges of the mat. Bend the knees, and find a tick-tock of the knees from side to side. Notice how this feels in that band around the hips, the sacrum, the low back. Alright, then come back to stillness, letting the feet rest on the earth, keeping that wide leg. Toes are pointing toward the back corners of the mat. Alright, so we're coming up onto forearms. This is our Sphinx pose. And we want a 90-ish degree bend in the elbows. And we can modify this and change this as needed, but the shoulders stacked over the elbows will press into the forearms and we press into the palms. Hands are about shoulder distance apart, reaching at the top of the mat. And then we're using this press of the forearms, the palms, the hands to lift out of the shoulders. And then again, just like in our cow pose, we have this very natural curve in the lumbar spine, in the low part of the back. But see if we can create that flexion in the upper part of the back. So we're not just dumping into the lumbar spine, pulling the heart forward. And then our glutes, our lovely little butt muscles, they tend to be lazy, except for in this pose, at least mine. But what they like to do is they kind of like to activate. They think they need to activate and hold on here. And I like to just kind of give my hips a little bit of a shake to remind the glutes that thank you, but your help isn't needed. You can relax. And then try and settle into this shape. Couple more cycles of breath here. Try and stay lifted out of the shoulders, creating that flexion in the upper part of the back. And then on the next exhale, we'll slowly lower all the way down. Again, coming on to stacking the palms, allowing the forehead rest on the palms. Bending the knees, tick-tocking the knees from side to side, or even holding in some stillness here. Taking an option that feels good for you. Just noticing any sensations that are coming up for you in your practice today. Feelings, emotions, physical sensations, energetic changes or shifts. And meet those observations without judgment. Allow yourself the space to be exactly as you've shown up here. Okay, coming into half frog pose. So we're going to bend that right knee. We're going to draw the right knee up toward the right elbow. And then the right heel is going to be about in line with that right knee. We'll have that right foot flexed. So we've got about a 90-ish degree bend in that right leg. And then just notice how this feels. Notice the sensations of this shape in the body on this side. Try and find maybe a place in the body where you're holding on, a place in the body that's active and supporting you here. And maybe using an exhale breath to soften, to surrender a little more deeply into the shape. Now, if you feel good here, you can stay here. If you would like to experiment with maybe changing the sensation and possibly intensifying this a little bit more, you can come back up onto forearms. Thank you, buddy. Oh, he's so sweet to me. Coming onto forearms, so we're in this Sphinx frog variation. And again, only coming into this shape if this is what oh, if this is what unconditional love looks like for you today. I'm so lucky I have the sweetest dogs. They love me so much. And if this feels too intense, you can always lower back down onto the belly, stacking those palms and letting forehead rest. All right, so if you're still up on the forearms, go ahead and lower down onto the belly. And then we'll take that right foot back and allow that leg to rest back down onto the earth. And pausing before switching sides, noticing how that right side feels compared to the left. And then switching sides, drawing out that left knee up to the side, finding that heel in line of the left knee, flexing that foot, and just pausing here. So we have that option coming to come up onto the forearms. But let's just start to introduce the shape on this side. And again, recognizing that what we need on one side may look and feel different than what's needed on the other. Use an exhale breath to soften a place in the body that might be holding on, or you're holding a little tension. All right, now if you're happy here, you stay here. If you'd like to experiment with coming up onto the forearms on this side, you can. Again, finding lift out of the shoulders and try to pull the heart forward. Just notice how this changes the sensation of this pose. Is this truly an expression of self-love today? Or would coming back to a previous version and option of this pose be something more fitting for what you need? Remember, more isn't better, it's just more. A few more cycles of breath. If you're still on the forearms, go ahead and slowly start to release back down onto the belly, stacking the palms and resting the forehead on the backs of the palms. And then extending that left leg back down to meet the right. Just pause. Noticing how the left side of the body feels in comparison to the right. And then we're meeting on our backs. So coming onto the back space of the body, we're going to grab our block or the stacks of blankets or a towel. Right. And then once you get to your back, we'll bend the knees and plant the feet about a foot or two in front of the glutes. And then we're going to take our block or that little stack of blankets. You'll have to slide that under. But we're going to take a supported bridge. So lifting the hips up and then taking the block. Let's start on the very lowest setting. We'll place that underneath the sacrum, the lowest part of the back for the hips to rest. And if you feel any pinching in the low back, you're just going to slide that block down a little bit further. And then arms can rest anywhere that's comfortable, maybe along the sides. Might feel nice to bring the hands to the belly, maybe even resting on top of the hips. Might also feel nice to reach the arms up and overhead. And then just notice what it feels like to be in this shape. What are the sensations that are happening for you in the body? Now I'm going to add a couple of additional options here. And again, if you feel good here, you're going to stay here. Maybe taking and weaving the foot of the right leg underneath the left, and then letting that right knee fall open. Now, if the hips, that left hip starts to come up off of your prop, try and recenter the hips and keep that right knee opening to the side. Now, this can feel like a lot, so you can always come back and plant that right foot and come back to your bridge pose. So taking an option here that feels good for you. We'll hold here for a few cycles of breath, and I'll give you the option to switch sides in just a moment. Try and keep that pelvis balanced. And then noticing where in the body there's tension and are you holding on? You can use an exhale breath to soften, to surrender to the shape, and let the tissues of the body release some of that tension. Okay, so if you took that option with the right leg, we're going to replant that right foot. Pause before switching sides. Just notice how the right side feels compared to the left. And then when you're ready, taking that left foot and threading it underneath the right. Maybe drawing that foot up toward the right hip, letting that left knee feel heavy. And again, sides are different. So what you feel on this side, this shape may feel different than what you experience on the other. And maybe this is too intense. You can always come back to that previous option. But if you have that left foot threaded underneath the right, see if you can let that left knee be heavy, opening up that left hip, keeping the pelvis balanced on that block. And this side is so much different for me. Really tight. And just noticing what it feels to be in this shape on this side, using that breath to soften and release some of that tension. And then when you're ready, replant that left foot. Just pause here. Notice how the left side feels compared to the right. And then we'll lift the hips and slide that prop out from underneath you, lowering the hips back down onto the earth. And then option to counter that pose, you can walk the feet to the outside edges of the mat, let the knees fall in and rest, or maybe even taking the knees into the chest for another Apanasana. And again, remember, you can take the knees out wide, giving that space for that belly. You can even find a little rock from side to side, massaging out the hips, the low back. All right. We'll do one final little twist before we come to our Shavasana. So we're going to cross the right ankle over the left thigh. We'll flex that right foot and then see if you can use the strength and power of that right leg to draw the right knee forward toward the top of the mat or the back of the mat. I guess it depends on where you ended up laying. All right, and then arms can come out to the side like a T. We'll take an inhale, and on the exhale, let the legs fall over to the left. I'm going to give you 3 more little options here. So first, I want you to observe how the body landed on this side in this shape. Okay, and then we'll take the left hand, and we're going to take the hand on the inside of the right knee, and we're going to very gently start to press that knee forward. Noticing how that changes the sensations that are happening. And then I'm going to give you your third option. So we'll take that left hand behind the right knee and start to pull that leg in toward the body. So noticing between those 3 where you landed, pressing forward or pulling toward you, and then choosing one of those options that best honors your body today. What does it look like to love the body today? And then observing the tension, where you're holding on. And can you use an exhale breath to surrender? On our next inhale, we'll bring everything back up through center, uncross that right ankle, and then switching sides, crossing the left ankle over the right thigh, flex that left foot, start to activate that leg, draw that left knee forward, and then taking an inhale. On the exhale, let the legs fall over to the right now, that right foot planting on the earth. Now I know you took a particular version on the other side, but we're going to still go through and experiment with all three of these different options. So first, noticing how you landed in this shape on this side, and then taking the right hand on the inside of that left knee, and then very gently start to press that left knee forward. Notice how that feels here. And then taking the hand behind the left knee and then start to pull the left knee toward the body. Notice how that feels. And then taking the option that feels good and what you need on this side. So if it's different than what you did on the other, let that be okay. Honor that. Honor what you need here. Honor what feels best for you in this shape on this side. Noticing the tension here. Noticing where you're holding on. And can you use the exhale breath to soften? On the next inhale, we'll bring everything back up through center. Uncross the left leg. And then making your way into your Shavasana. So whatever that looks like for you today. So if you usually take a traditional Shavasana with the legs long, arms by the side, and the chin in toward the chest, and that feels best for you, take that. But if there's another version of Shavasana that sounds better, that would really allow you to express that unconditional love, then you're going to take that option today. And that could be a blanket under the knees, maybe legs up the wall, maybe even roll over onto your side. Maybe think about the way that you rest in your bed. Maybe that's how you take your Shavasana today. And then we'll take a cleansing breath to release us, letting everything go, allowing us just to feel the sensations that we've cultivated in the body today in our practice. So big, deep breath in. Open mouth, exhale, let it go, heavy sigh out. And enjoy these next few moments in Shavasana. start to bring some awareness back to the body, inviting in gentle movement, maybe wiggling fingers and toes, maybe rolling out the ankles and wrists. And you are welcome to take additional time in your Shavasana. If you would like to finish class with me in a seat, please make your way there in whatever way makes sense. And in this last invitation to honor that unconditional love for the body, what would that look like today for you? If it makes sense for you in your practice, bringing hands at heart center, you can join me for this Anjali Mudra. I consider it a great honor and privilege to share my practice with you and to guide you in an experience in the body. I humbly thank each and every one of you for allowing me to share this with you and for following along with me today. I humbly bow before you as the light in me truly sees and honors the light in each and every being on this earth. Namaste.